Join us for an episode of My Truth Today, where individual purpose is revealed to us through our own truths. Let's all be in a safe place, tell the truth, and help each other unlearn and evolve. Now, welcome our host, Nicole Stinson, and co-host, Christie, Locke.
Okay. Welcome back to My Truth Today. It's been, seems like months.
I think it has been months, but it's good to be back.
Nice to be back and nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
What you been up to?
The huge, you know. I think things are getting busier in life and in business and in everything. So, been busy.
That's good. Busy is good.
Yeah. What about you?
Busy and busy. Not making money.
It's a theme. Yeah. Well, we're so excited to be here today. We have a special guest joining us today, Mr. Colt Curtis. Hi, Colt.
What's up, guys?
Thanks
for having me.
Of course, we're so excited to see you, the creator of the 45 on the Hour podcast. Mm-hmm. And so Colt will tell us a little bit about himself, but this conversation today, we're super excited to jump into because it's essentially an extension of what we had on the 45 on the Hour podcast. So I joined that day and got to see your setup and kind of what you do. And we spoke a little bit about the male perspective versus female perspective on relationships and kind of what makes a high value person, right? We're excited to continue that today and hear more from you with your perspective.
Thanks.
Yeah, tell us a little about yourself and kind of what brought you into the podcast world.
Well, I mean, so pretty much healing. I mean, I had to figure out healing. When I was like 37, I started having like panic attacks. And I was like, what the heck is this stuff? And, you know, it's weird because it's taboo for guys to talk about anxiety and panic attacks.
Yes.
It's kind of like a pussy thing, you know, for like some stronger men. You know, you're like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to keep it to myself. And so I did. I kept it to myself. And then I started spiraling. And anyways, my cousin was telling me, she's like, you know, you gotta start doing like self-help and stuff, you know, and mindset stuff. And I was like, all right. She's like, yeah, go back to your past and try to figure out where that comes from, you know. I was like, all right. So anyways, a little bit of a background about myself. My dad, when I was like 5, transitioned to a female. He started that process. So I didn't understand what was going on with my family. My parents split up when I was 5. My dad left. I really didn't have a parent. My mom was working 24 hours a day. She was a single, you know, lady just trying to raise her kids. We were super poor. We lived up here, actually, just down the street at Caravilla Mobile Park, so from where we're at. And so, you know, she was just trying to figure it out, you know. And then, and then I got into, you know, like being a knucklehead, trying to get into the wrong crowd. And I was around little street gangs and stuff, just trying to figure myself out, trying to be a man, trying to figure out what love was, you know. But the only love I ever felt was from other dudes in the wrong way. It was like, oh yeah, you got to get down with us to try to prove yourself. So I did that for, you know, till I was like 18, barely graduated high school, went in the Marine Corps to save my life because I was going down the wrong path. The Marine Corps helped me in a lot of ways because it taught me discipline and, you know, self-motivation and all those things, which I had. But then the next thing happened. I got out and then I felt like I was alone again. You know, there was no transitional phase, nothing like that. And I felt alone. I had separation anxiety, and I didn't know it.
Did you have a relationship with your mother at that time?
You know, I did, but my mom, we were talking about this on the podcast, how like, on our last podcast, how females tend to be however their partner is. So if their partner's not leading from the front, the woman ends up picking up for the male. That's why most women say, hey, we don't necessarily want to be dominant, we want to be submissive, but to the right man, right? Because if you're not showing that you can lead, then we're going to have to lead ourselves, right? And so my mom was a leader. You know, she just became a leader because she had to. And she was trying to do her best with me as best she could. But she had her ex-husband, and then her second husband ended up becoming gay. So then I think after both of those incidents, she just kind of lost all perspective on being a lady and just was like, screw it, I can't trust anyone. And you know, she's gotten a lot of help and she's trying, but so I kind of didn't really feel like I had a family, and I was drifting out just trying to figure it out. But then when I went in the Marine Corps, that was my brotherhood, that was my family. That's a positive family. But as I noticed the track, you know, like family meant violence. Family meant you had to sacrifice something. And I always thought, okay, I have to be tough because that's really what a man is being tough. You know, but tough is just hurt. We all know that. Tough men are just hurt men at the end of the day. Men with anger problems are just at the end of the day, you're little babies. You know, they're just sad inside. You know, and that's reality because anger is the lowest form of self. You know,
Well, not just with men. I think with anybody, really.
correct. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I was just kind of figuring like for myself, I was trying to figure out myself, and I don't know. After I went in the Marine Corps, it just took a big toll on me. Plus, I went to combat, and then I got back, and I was suffering from, you know, post-traumatic stress disorder, which was a thing, and I had TBI, which is traumatic brain injury from a mortar fire that went off, and I was really lost. I felt like, you know, like no one really gave a shit.
Wow.
And stuff, and so I went through this whole spiraling phase, and then I ended up getting back into what I knew, you know. So I joined a few motorcycle clubs, and one really big one that was a, you know, 1%er club. And I did that for a few years trying to figure it out. And it was the same thing, you know. It was like, that's just what you witnessed was like pain and trauma. And I thought that was like life. I was like, oh, life's filled with violence. Violence is the way that you show love to each other. That's what real love is. Okay. And I did that. And then I got out because I was having problems with my ex-wife and stuff like that because I was gone too much or too long. And then I lived life, and I just tried to build a business. I was like, you know what? No, I got to do better. I know this isn't right. It just doesn't feel right, you know? And I wasn't listening to my conscience. I was always battling with God my whole life, you know? And they say that the strongest Christians are the ones that battle the most with God. You know? That's the strongest one. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to ignore it. And I always ignored it. And I just focused on work, and I couldn't really hear my kids. And before you knew, when I was 37, I started having panic attacks. And I started spiraling, and I was taking medication trying to fix it. And all that stuff was just garbage. It wasn't really working. I had to work on myself. So my cousin turned me into a guy named Ed Milet, which you guys know who he is.
Yes.
And I saw a thing about your thoughts and how 90% of your thinking every day is the same. It's repetitive. So you have to be able to like think about what you think about and then control your thoughts. So I did that, and I was like, man, I could really use this. And so I did it, and then I just put headphones on, and I was going to the gym just trying to get my tempo high, and I noticed that every time I vibrated high and I had blood flow, I felt better, you know? And I stopped smoking weed because I was smoking weed a little bit, and I stopped taking the medication from the VA, and I just cold turkey everything. And I was just water, healthy, that's it. And I started focusing on mindset, getting my thoughts better, trying to think more productively, more positive. And then I started changing. And then I started helping other vets because they started noticing I was changing, and they were asking me questions. And I was learning all these little pickup things from all these other mentors I was watching.
Did you feel like you had to unlearn things before you can relearn things, or you just stop and just start fresh?
You know, I didn't focus on the unlearning stuff. I focused on the learning.
Okay.
So like I was like, okay, I need new habits, new traits. I need to stop thinking I'm a victim. Oh yeah, you were in a war and you were hurt. Okay, cool. Well, no one gives a shit anymore. You're fine. We'll be okay. You know, and we need to pick it up because you got to figure out your why. And so what's your why? And so my why was always my daughters. So I was like, all right, cool. If it's my daughters, then that means I could figure out the how. So the how is the actual action to take place to figure out how to do it. But if you know why, it's like figuring out how to get somewhere in the morning. If you really want to get there, you'll get there. You know, whether that be walking, running, you know, taking a train, you'll figure it out, you know? And so I had to figure out my why. So that was the first thing that I learned. And after I figured that out, then I had trouble with purpose. I still didn't feel purpose because I felt like I was too smart. But in reality, I wasn't too smart. I was just too arrogant, you know, right? Kills us, right?
Yeah. I have some points to bring up for sure. I'm trying to remember all of them.
Okay.
But so continue with the arrogance and then how that shifted.
So to shift the arrogance, I learned that I had to be humble.
Got it.
I had to humble myself constantly and humiliate myself to the point to where I was thankful and gracious. And so I got back into religion again because that was something my dad and me had in common. So we didn't have the whole, obviously, our sexual parts in common, obviously, wanting to be a chick or not. But I struggled with that because that was my dad.
Right.
I was like, dude, you're supposed to be teaching me how to be a man. I had to figure it out myself.
Right.
And like you know, like we don't have anything in common, but we have
hard.
a lot in common. Because I did a podcast with my dad. My dad's new name is Lisa.
I saw that. I loved it.
Oh, you saw it?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the audio was kind of messed up on it, but we ended up fixing it. We were learning at the time. But my dad gave me a pocket watch that she had for a long time. It's still weird to say she, you know, but like I respect my dad. But now I understand. You know, like it took me a long time. I hated my dad so much, but I only hated my dad because I hated the way that I felt because of what my dad did
Right.
to me. But in reality, my dad didn't do anything to me. My dad, he was just struggling in his own person. And so to me, to judge my dad really reflects highly about who I am as a person. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, and my dad sees me as who I am today, and my dad's forgiven me, you know, for feeling that, and I've forgiven my dad. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what true healing comes from. Because I was afraid to talk about my dad forever. I was afraid people would judge me. I was like, I used to lie and say my dad was in prison. And so I'd say, oh yeah, my dad's in jail. That's why he doesn't come around. That's why I've never seen him, you know. But now I'll bring my dad anywhere. I take pictures with my dad. I publicize it. That was my release when I was 37 because I was having those panic attacks. And one of the things I had learned was to release your pain, you have to forgive.
Right.
Not only yourself, but everybody else. And so I did that. I started practicing gratitude, and I just said, you know what? I'm tired of feeling this shit. I'm tired of feeling hate. So I just did a picture with my dad. And my dad is a full woman now. There's no everything, no penis, no chest. Like, it's just, my dad has boobs. And so I was like, wow, okay, this is really going to be it. If I like release and I just tell everyone and I just don't give a fuck what anyone says.
Yep.
I don't care. And I just did it. And I did this post and I wrote this huge message. And it was basically starting off with, so everybody, this is Lisa, but a long time ago it was my father. And that was the start of the message. And I was crying when I wrote it. And I was like, I hated the way I felt because I felt weird. I felt like people were going to judge me or think I was gay or I was a trans, you know, like weird shit, you know, which I'm not. I'm totally I'm straight, you know. But I thought that people would perceive me, especially my tough friends, you know, my club friends, the people I knew from the past that struggled with, you know, gangs and things like that. They're running out of prison. I was like, these are the guys like I thought I should look up to, you know, but it wasn't. The only person I should look up to is God, you know. But in a sense, I did that. And then I just broke down in tears, and then I posted it, and then it was shared like 1,000 times. It had like thousands of likes and hearts and people of all walks of life. I had former gang members writing back, I love you, brother. You're a bigger man than me. My dad did. And people were just telling their stories.
That's awesome.
And it was like, man, like, why is everyone so positive about this? And it was because I became relatable because I took off my mask. And I was like, hey, now we can have a real conversation, you know, and that's what happens with people. People are so worried about being judged and criticized.
Kind of like what we do. I mean, that's our purpose here.
I think it is
right?
a huge purpose is like being authentic and, like you said, removing the mask and just finding that relatability between people and just having like the human experience of things. And one thing that you said, you know, it was forgiveness, but I think forgiveness can be used interchangeably with acceptance and, you know, accepting and giving grace to both yourself and your father for maybe not handling things in the most communicative way. But I think you should also give yourself self-grace because you said, you know, that he's forgiven you, which is amazing, right? At this stage of adulthood, right? But I think you should also give yourself grace because you were a kid when all of that started happening, and you're not responsible for knowing what your parents are going through. You're not responsible for, you shouldn't have to navigate that as a child, right? And so, yes, it's huge that you've realized that everyone is human, whether they are a parent or not, and they're all going to be going through their own things, and they can only do as much as they can, right? They can only take you as far as they can take you before you. I think that's part of growing up too, is just like transitioning from being that child that's trying to figure it all out to then becoming an adult who can make their own decisions and who can take that title of parent and just look at someone as a human being, right? And I think that I was saying the forgiveness and acceptance, I think it's beautiful because one thing that's so powerful about that message that people saw and that made them feel comfortable enough to share their stories was your vulnerability, but also the fact that people are drawn to authenticity and to, like I said, just the human experience, and
makes them feel safe.
Yeah. And we all grieve a relationship, right? Whether that's a relationship with a father that maybe wasn't there for you in the capacity that you needed to grow into a young man, right? Maybe it's it could be anything. It's a relationship, a divorce situation. It's so many things that we have to grieve, and I think that the experience of your father transitioning into a woman is so unique in the fact that you really have to grieve that person that you once thought you were going to have, the idea of your dad, of what your dad would look like to you. You have to grieve that process. And it's almost like, I mean, you know, I know a lot of people that are, you know, transgender, and it's almost a death in a way.
I was going to say a death and a reborn.
Exactly. It's a death and a rebirth of this person, and it challenges you to look at everything that you've previously believed about what makes a person who they are, right? And honoring, like you said, and respecting your father's wishes and everything. So I think it's so unique, and it's a powerful testament to grieving the person, the relationship that you once expected.
Right.
And then accepting who they are today. And I think that's beautiful.
Also, though,
Thanks.
Today's times versus when you were 5.
Right.
With acceptance of this
Right.
is much different, too.
Oh, totally. It's more
I mean, we're in a
accepted
different
now.
world, right?
Yeah, we're totally now.
Yeah.
But I just remember, going back in time, and someone told me this because this is when I was struggling with panic attacks every day. I wanted to die. I took medicine. I was trying to kill myself. I tried it. I couldn't deal with the panic attacks. I couldn't deal with not being able to control my brain. I've never been in a situation like that. And so I talked about it openly because I wanted to relate to a lot of males that had panic attacks and anxiety that just weren't talking about it.
Right.
Because I thought it was like some thing that only females do. So when I did it, I started relating to other men. Some of the toughest guys that I've ever seen before were messaging me, coming out of the closet. Like, dang, bro, I have them all the time. I can't, and they're talking about their sexual parts not working and how they have stress and their hearts are always beating and, they don't feel like a man. Just crazy stuff, and I was like, wow, I'm glad, and then so I was like, you know what, maybe this is my purpose, And so, right. Yeah.
This is exactly, so before I met Christie and I started doing this, I was talking about different subjects on not a podcast, but we were doing videos at the time. It wasn't an official podcast. And just noting behavior. And the same thing, I would be getting messages from men that you would never think, and even women, talking about the topic that was embarrassing and telling their truths too. And it's like, wait a minute, there's something to this. Maybe we're embarrassed to talk about things, or we think we're embarrassed to talk about things, we're uncomfortable, but it does make other people go, there is I'm not alone.
No.
And they start coming out and talking about it.
Yeah, and so that's what I teach guys today, make yourself vulnerable. A lot of guys, I try to help with guys with losing weight and stuff, and I do it for free. I'm eventually going to make it a thing, but right now I just do it because I like to do it, and I do. I mean, you see all the stuff I do, right? I do burpees every day. I do my workout. I record it. I put out music that maybe is not okay with everybody else sometimes, But that's me, And I think that you never ask permission from anyone to be you. You shouldn't. You should just be you, because the most authentic person that you could be for yourself is who you should be.
Yes.
In general. Because that's how you should live life. You should never live life in fear of what people are going to say or judge you, because if you're going to criticize, if people are going to criticize you, they gotta add self-criticism, constructive criticism, I'm sorry. They got to be able to constructively give you an answer. Like if you say, hey, you're fat and we need to work on you because I know that you struggle with self-esteem, but I'm going to help you. We're going to go to the gym together tomorrow. I'm going to give you a meal plan, and we're going to work on you because I love you. I love you, and I care about you. Right? That's love. Lying to somebody about it isn't love. Love ain't lies. That's what I tell everyone. Don't lie to me. That's my biggest thing. I give people one chance now. I tell people from the beginning, especially in dating and in relationships, I tell people that. I say, hey, you get one chance. Don't lie to me. And if they lie,
that's more than I give.
Right?
I get no chances.
Yeah, you guys are, I struggle with, and honestly, sometimes you work with some things, because of insecurities or whatever with people. And I'm struggling to tell you, as long as it wasn't something serious, you know? You're like, all right, well, are we past that? All right, cool, But I never understood how important communication was. And I think it's the number one most important thing that a human can learn is to be communicative or whatever you want to call it, be able to communicate properly. Because if you can communicate properly and you can speak properly, then life's just so much easier for you and for everybody else.
I think communication's everything.
I think communication is totally key, and that's something that I did want to bring up today, and we'll get there. But two things that stood out in your background that you were telling us too was, I don't know which one to start with, but let's start here. Your mom, right? And you had said something about her trust being broken, and then she needed to take a leadership role. Right. And I think so often we see that, and it'll be nice to get a male perspective on this, but I think the collective that I've heard, at least in my experience with my girlfriends and everything, right, is that we've become so used to wearing the pants, for lack of a better word for it, a better phrase for it. We've become so used to taking on those leadership roles. And I don't know if that's collectively because of trust issues, or if it's because
we're control freaks.
Because we're control freaks, or is it because we can't, the partners that we choose or the men that are out there are lacking in some way. And so I don't know if you can tie that in with accountability of what you just said as well, of that, like, when you love someone, you hold them accountable, right? But there's this role that your mother had to take. And I think so many women are experiencing that these days with taking on this leadership role.
Correct. Yeah. And I think that's a big problem these days, is just with dudes. I think dudes are just, I mean,
it's dudes?
What's the real
like
problem?
100% that it's the guy?
You know, it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I'm not going to just say it's just the males, but it's a little bit of both. But the women also are changing because of the males.
Right.
You know,
response to.
In response to them. So, and guys, some guys will say, like, oh, it's hard to find a good woman these days. It's like, yeah, but it's hard to find a good guy these days.
What's a good woman and what's a good...
You know, and what's a good woman,
yeah.
what's a good guy,
What does that
you know?
mean?
And so, like, I always go back to the Bible and, like, what God says, you know? And, like, the man's supposed to lead in the relationship. He's supposed to. But the woman has to be calm enough to know that, you know, you got it. You got us covered, right? Mentally, physically, spiritually, you got us, right? And there's, like, a statistic. It's funny, but it says 80% of the time when the man leads the house, the family follows. And then 40% of the time, if the woman leads the house, the family follows. And then if the kids do it, it's like 15% of the time the family follows. And so it's like this thing. And it's funny because it says all that stuff in the Bible. It says all those things. But I think what's wrong with men these days is, I don't know. I think the world has just been giving people too much freebies, you know? And I think people are just, like, getting lazier, you know? And I think that dudes are just thinking that they don't have to put out any more energy than just what's expected of them. Like, oh, I'm only asked to just go to work and come home. It's like, no, motherfucker. You got to get out. You got to work. You got to come home. You got to feed the family. You got to make sure your wife's taken care of, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Make sure your kids are good. You got to make sure that you work on yourself every day. You know, you got to make sure you read. You're always improving. You know, and a lot of these guys don't have it, and then they don't have the confidence. So when they don't have the confidence, then the women are backing up, like, oh shit, I got to start leading, you know, because their dude's crying about losing their job, or, you know, he's trying to get up but he can't because he's overweight and he hates his life.
So does that guy you were just talking about, that person that goes out, does his job, takes care of his woman spiritually, mentally, physically, whatever?
He's the Rock.
Okay, so does that kind of relationship work with someone like a woman that is a control freak, independent? How can a man do that?
That's a good question.
If there was somebody that is...
So I had a relationship like that.
Yeah.
Not to get too
Please.
into it.
Yeah, right?
Get too into it.
Yeah. So I had a relationship. So there's different types of men, right? There's men, and then there's alpha males. And then there's alpha males. So I consider myself like an alpha male. So alpha males are like leaders, like they're good men, you know, they do what's responsible, they're the Rock, you know, and then there's guys that are the leaders of other men, you know, and that's like an alpha male. And that's what I think. Like when I come into a room, I demand the respect. I demand it. I demand the presence of the room, like I have to lead, you know, and if someone challenges me, I'm willing to challenge them, whether it be physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever. I feel like I'm doing all the work and I feel like I know what's best. Not that I'm not willing to like budge, but if you can handle it, let me know. And most of the time...
To a man or to anybody?
To a man.
Okay.
Right. But getting back, what was the question again about the females? I want to get back to that. Control.
Well, when
right.
That's okay. So you're that. Off. I'm assuming you're that person that's going to take care of everything because that's what you believe right now. That's what you just said, right?
Right.
So how do you get into a relationship, or do you, with someone that's a woman that's just like you?
Right. So that was my last relationship. So she was an alpha female, and then so me being what I am. We butted heads on leadership because she had a male that she was with previously, that she was married to for 15 years, that didn't take care of business.
Right.
Right? She had to provide. She had to take care of the kids. She had to be the man. He couldn't provide the security.
Right.
Yeah, he was there, present,
right,
but he wasn't being what a real husband is, you know? Hey, babe, are you okay? Let me take care of you, whatever. So then you fast forward time and then you meet a guy that's equal to you. Now you struggle in a relationship. And I think that if you're in competition with your partner, I think that the relationship may or may not work. I don't think it can succeed personally for me.
I don't think so either.
I think because you're always butting heads.
Yeah. Right.
You know? So, but that's the job of the male to show her, hey, I can handle things. I got you. It's fine. But it's a little bit of the woman though. She's got to be like, okay, you know, he's been pretty consistent. Let me start backing off. Okay, babe, you want to lead this? All right, that's fine. You got it. I'll let you lead the relationship a little bit. You want to go to dinner? Okay, you pick the place. All right, you want to pick me up? Okay, fine. You know, you want to pay for the bills? Yeah, that's fine. You know, like whatever the male leads in the roles, you know, and I think that it's a little bit of both, you know, it really is. But it's hard when a woman doesn't see the confidence in a man. Like, that's why they say, like, some of the most unattractive, unfit guys are with some of the hottest girls. And the reason for it is because they're confident. They're not insecure, you know? And some guys are, you know, they could be whatever they look like and whatever they feel, but women just want a nice guy that makes them feel loved, you know, and is somewhat confident, you know? But then when they get around a guy that has all those things, you know, like a good body, mentally, physically, he's got a background, he cherishes them, he's valuable, he's doing the stuff that he needs to do, then I think it becomes a challenge, especially if she thinks that she's super hot and she's got everything figured out, or she's super confident. Then it's like a headbutting competition. So I think it all relies on respect. I was talking about this on my stories a little bit ago. I was talking about the difference between respect and love. You know, I can love my partner, but I may not respect her, right? And then I can also, you know, respect my friend, but I may not love him. You know what I'm saying? I can respect somebody in business because they're a good business person, but I don't like them as a person.
Could you love somebody if you don't respect them? The opposite I couldn't do.
Romantically, I don't think it's real love. Right. I completely understand the concept of in business because I kind of say that pretty often.
Well, that's
there's
backwards.
Many people. Well,
You
there's
respect them but don't love them. But could you love someone you don't respect?
No, not truly.
Correct.
Right? Not
That's
truly.
what I'm trying to get at. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
not
both.
true love.
Yes.
Right? And so I think in a romantic relationship, you do have to respect the person in order to experience real, safe
100.
love with them.
Yes.
100.
But yeah, I say that all the time in business. There's a lot of people that I respect and that I think are extremely smart. I would never do business with them because I don't like them as a person, right? But I think in the romantic realm of things, then yeah, it has to go hand in hand.
Yeah.
For me, that's just what works for me.
Yeah.
I've noticed that my relationships that have gone sour is because I still love the person and I miss them because I struggle with abandonment issues from my dad. But I know that I love this person. I want the best for them, but I just don't, you know, because they've let me down too many times or their actions and words don't align. I just don't respect them. And I've noticed that if I don't respect somebody, that's when my relationship turns toxic. It's not that I don't love them anymore. It's that I don't respect them. Because if I respect them, I won't talk to anyone else. I don't care. I don't see another woman. I don't view another woman. I just want to make that one woman happy.
Yes.
Day in, day out.
Yeah.
And every single need, I want to be the top performer male for her. And I want her to see me as the only man. So
That's awesome.
yeah. So respect and love, there's two different things. And I think if we're talking about relationships, I think that's important. I think ladies need to be a woman that's respectable and that can be lovable. You know, I think that comes hand in hand. I don't think you can have one without the other. You know, I think you need to have both.
So what about a woman that eats Oreos every day? Can you love a woman that eats Oreos every day?
As long as it's once in a while. You know, she's following her macros now.
Cold has a high
I
standard.
never worried about a woman that eats. I prefer it. But, you know, just someone that's confident, you know.
Yeah.
Like males want a confident woman as well.
Yeah.
Most men are challenged by a confident woman, you know, because it challenges them. You know, it's easier for a woman to be very submissive and really be clingy to the guy. And like most males like that because then they can feel a little bit more like a man, you know. But I think the true test is to find someone that's just like you, but that allows you to be the man you are and submit, right? In the right forms, you know. But I think in reality, like women lead the role, no matter what. I mean, yeah, you know, there's this old theory. It says the queen protects the king. You know, you ever heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah, and just because the man's in front because he's got the guns and the muscles, that doesn't mean that he controls the situation.
Right.
The wife really does in most aspects.
Happy wife, happy life.
Exactly.
Well, I think men really search for partnership at the end of the day, right? And so they don't have to be exactly like you, but they are a reflection of you. And I think anyone that you're in a relationship with is a reflection of yourself, right? And your world and how you feel about yourself and your world. And I think there's a certain level of like, I think men, and correct me if maybe I'm wrong, and I know you can't speak for the entire male species, but
I'm
going to get beat up when I leave here.
He's the only one here, so.
I think that a lot of men think that they know what they want, but they don't. And so they'll look for the physical attraction. And mind you, I think there's different forms of attraction, and we'll get into that, right? But physicality is like one of the first things that men will obviously be attracted to, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but that
looks.
Yeah.
Okay.
90%.
And then and you can put that hand in hand almost with like sexual attraction, right? Most guys are just like, yeah, I would have sex with that girl for
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, but I think
that's just how men are driven.
Right.
Men are driven by sex.
Correct. Biologically.
Correct.
Which is fine. And that's not my point. But I think that those things kind of fade over time, right? And that's why guys can go through these girls and these relationships so quickly, because they're being driven biologically to be attracted to a person, but they're not really taking into account all of the other things that really matter in a relationship. They're truly searching for a partner and a reflection of themselves, but that's going to lack in many people because, you know, I can walk down the street. There's a lot of people that are sexually attractive or physically attractive, like dime a dozen, right? Like, of course, I can walk out the door right now and I can be like, that guy's hot, right? Doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because if you're searching for an actual partnership or someone you can actually share the depths of yourself with, those kinds of things fade.
Yes, they do.
And so, you know, from the male perspective, what attracts you to a woman and for a long term? No. We're talking long term. What makes continuing from your podcast, what makes a woman high value in your eyes?
A woman that knows what she wants.
Okay.
A woman that shows what she wants. A woman that's valued. A woman that respects herself. Especially a woman that dresses well. Like, I can see it. A woman that takes care of herself and she dresses well and she's like confident. That's fire for me. An untouchable woman. Like, not a woman that I can get. Like, almost a woman that I have to kind of work for a little bit, only because she wants to make sure you're the right match for her. You know, it's like a dime a dozen. And women want the same thing. They want an untouchable man. No woman wants a man that any woman can get.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
Right? Am I wrong? Or?
No, you're right.
Right. So I think that's important. But I mean, yeah, when I see a woman that dresses well and she's confident and she's clear and she's working on her abilities to like provide and like take care of herself and her family, and she's just mentally strong and she speaks well, those things attract me deeply. So
After looks, though, you're saying. First, it has to be the looks and that.
That's complicated because, I'm drawn to certain features on a woman. So, I'm going to say, oh, she's pretty. But then I'm like, wait a minute, hold on a second. And then I watch something.
They're
or
deal
I see
breakers,
something,
right.
And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. She just became so much more hotter. And then I watch again and again and again. And I notice that for me draws me to somebody because those are values that I have. So this is something I talk to dudes about and females. And when people come to me for help or they DM me or whatever, they're like, hey, man, I'm trying to lose weight and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, cool, send me your freaking before and after photos. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, send me a progress photo. Send me a photo of you right now. No, absolutely not. And it'll be dudes. I have a gut, and I don't give a shit. Like, are you serious about it or are you just talking?
That's awesome.
And then they do it and they're like, all right. I was like, now you sent me a photo. Now you have to do it. That's why I post every day, all day long, because I have to prove it.
Yeah.
That's my non-negotiable. So I get into non-negotiables with people. Do you know what that is?
I do, but that is one of my questions for today. So you're leading right into it.
Right.
And this is a question for the table. No, you're taking it. But for the table, what are your non-negotiables in a relationship?
In a relationship or just overall? I actually did a post just a little bit ago about my non-negotiables. So
let's hear it. But and basically, yes, we're focusing on more romantic relationships today. But also, I think there's non-negotiables in any relationship with any person.
Correct.
That you're sharing a table with in any capacity. Yeah, I think so too. So what are your non-negotiables?
Well, my life non-negotiables are a little bit different. I haven't gotten to the actual. That's something I will do though. And I'll let you know about that. But non-negotiable rules of mine. So it starts with God first always, right? That's number one. Family first over everything. I won't do business with anyone I can't be friends with or who doesn't share my core values. My health and fitness is a priority in my daily regimen. I won't hang out with anyone who gossips or spreads rumors. These people are... And I have like a little throat person there. Yeah.
We agree.
Yeah. You what?
We agree.
You do? Okay. I respect someone who tries over someone who doesn't try at all. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you're allowed to disrespect me, I'm done with you. If you hang out with losers, you can't hang out with me. Loyalty is everything. I viciously protect my time and energy from negative people. I won't loan you money, but I'll show you where to obtain it. If the conversation isn't to produce growth or money, then I'm not interested in having it. You need to be a giver, not a taker. If you don't know how to mind your own business, then you and I can't be friends. I'm allergic to anyone that can't be kind and generous with their money. And that's it. I haven't added any more yet.
I love it.
I add to it every once in a while. Feel something that's like passionate, and like driven to my character and my core. And I'll be like, all right, I got to add that.
Okay, I have a couple questions regarding his non-negotiables.
Yeah,
so,
go for it.
Oh, yeah.
Religion. If you met someone that didn't believe in what you believe in, that's a non-negotiable for you.
It's tough.
Okay.
And it's tough, and I'm going to tell you why. Because if me and you don't align that way, and we have an argument, who are we going to go to for answers?
Right.
We're going to go to a counselor. They're going to be like, oh, well, you need to listen to her.
No,
and
they
you
go,
need to shut
so
up
what
and-
happened when you were 5? Yeah.
Yeah, oh, you're suffering from trauma and you're a narcissist or whatever people think of you, whatever. And you're like, okay, well, you can diagnose me all you want or give me a medicine or whatever.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, who's right and who's wrong? If I can go to a book and someone's saying, hey, this is how it is, you either believe it or you don't.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a very challenging question right now, and it might make you uncomfortable.
No.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah, we can edit if we need to.
No, we cannot.
I'm
edit.
scared.
We are
scared.
on the My Truth Today
I don't-
show.
Okay,
I'll-
I'm just
an
scared.
open
And I
book.
know I know he's an open book, and I know he'll respect a good question. So this book, the Bible, right, clearly also talks about things that your dad.
Correct.
So how do you?
It's against the religion. It's against most
Which I think is
churches.
ridiculous, by the way. But anyway, my question is, how are you choosing to make this book so important in your life, but then
It's against that.
not follow? Well, and I'm sure there's other
Correct.
things maybe that.
And so my perspective on that, and to be honest with you, my dad's always been afraid to go to church because of that. But my dad's also the reason why I go to church. My dad started that in my head when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So technically, I'm Christian and based on that because of my dad. But I brought my dad to church a while back. My dad's like, oh, I don't know if I should go. People don't really like my style here. I was like, hey, check it out. If they kick you out, I'm leaving with you. All right? And I know the pastor, so I didn't really say anything, and we just kind of went. It was like, whatever.
Christian's more, I think,
Open,
right? More
but here's the thing.
Catholic
So
or other people.
in church, 50% of the people in church aren't Christian. Do you know that?
Yes, I do.
They just go there because they want good feedback. They
Yeah.
want to feel healthy.
Yeah.
Most people leave church and then they're going to go smoke dope after or go have sex with 20 people.
Yep.
That's half the people in church. I think everyone in church is just trying to be better. They have a belief that they're trying to be a better person. They're trying to be, the idea is to get as close to God as possible, to be as like him as possible. So if you're in there and you're like, yeah, I'm struggling with these things, but you're trying, I think that says a lot about you. So maybe my dad made some mistakes and he was confused about his sexuality, or maybe they weren't mistakes.
It's not mistakes. I don't believe.
Yeah, I don't believe so either. But at the end of the day, it's not for me to judge. That's for God.
Yeah, I was just curious.
You
Not
know,
the church thing. I was more the book.
Right. So the book says no. Right. So aligning with the book also says not to have sex before marriage. But 99.8% of people do that. So I don't know.
It's not realistic. Yeah.
Correct, but it's not realistic. But we can go down the list. There's just so many different things. And you're right, though. There's a lot of things in there that it says you can't do. It also says thou shalt not kill. So does that mean that I'm going to hell? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, I get what you're saying.
Not that I've actually you know what I mean? But I was
I
in
was
the
just
Marine Corps.
wondering how you
so-
can turn to a book, like in a relationship, for
Advice.
advice. I might perceive a sentence differently than you perceive a sentence.
Totally.
That's all.
Totally, yeah. And my sister's Jewish. My mom doesn't really believe in anything. So, I've been through all walks of life. I was raised like a liberal, and then I went in the Marine Corps, and then I fell so I kind of fall in the middle now. I kind of have a little background.
That makes you
of
feel
everything.
good, and it fills you up. That's the important part.
That's all that really matters. And whatever
Yes.
works for you.
Yes.
I just know that for me, I protect the people that I love with all my heart.
I love that.
And I wanted to find the same thing. And I've struggled with that even in relationships because I've always had expectations on people, especially women. Like, wait, I feel this way. You should feel the same way. And it's like, no, I can't do that. I can't hold them to those expectations because that's expecting them to do something that maybe they're just not meant for, you know? So I've learned a lot about emotions since I was 37. And I made a lot of transitions and changes.
How long ago was 37?
I'm 41 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like so long ago. And I was like, you look really good for her.
Yeah. Question, what are your non-negotiables in a relationship, Nicole?
The ones that I think I have, but that I'm not really following.
Well, here you brought up a point earlier, right? And you had asked Colt about how he would respond to being with someone who's a quote unquote control freak. And I know that you and I have talked about that, and that you and I both admittedly have control issues, right? Yes. I have my own personal beliefs on where that comes from, right? And so we'll get into the wounding and how you respond to like your childhood wounds or abandonment issues, right? I know why I need control, right? And so, but what do you need from the experience of a man to trust him then? Because you said, well, how do I respond? I'm a control freak. So what do you need from the experience of a man to trust him? What are your non-negotiables to trust a man? You said we were doing hard questions.
No, it's not. Everything's a hard question for me because I'm like, as you know, I'm spinning. I don't like if you ask me a question, I don't know the answers. But I know that I'm a control freak, and I know because I was married for a long time that I molded the situation. When you keep doing things and you say you're going to keep doing these and no, you don't do those, I'll do this, you're sort of like telling the person you don't want them to do it. So it's not their fault, right? I'm tired of being that.
You're tired of taking the lead.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is where I was getting to before is I think collectively a lot of women are struggling with being exhausted by taking the lead. And to Colt's point, that's because it's not really your job to take the lead. So you can only end up being exhausted by continuing to take on things that are not your role, right? And so there's this unequalness. The equation is lopsided.
Because I want to be independent. I don't want to rely on anybody. I want to be happy without. I mean, I want to be with somebody, but I don't want that to be why I'm happy. Most of the time, if you want to just
with yourself,
you have to, and then the person is a bonus. Like I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to have to like have somebody.
I used to always think that
I don't want to have somebody be my everything, or I don't want to be someone's everything, even though I think I do. I should. So I'm. Before you even meet me, it's you're 10 steps back before you can get here. Telling the truth. I can't stand people that lie. That's a non-negotiable for me. Religion is not. It's not something. I mean, it's important, but it's not.
Yeah, it's not a non-negotiable for you.
It's not a non-negotiable. Politics is not. I don't even want to talk about politics.
Yeah, me neither. Get out of here with that.
Yeah, I mean, that could just go away. But I'm just tired of being the person that I have been. I guess having to do everything. I'm a person like if you ask me if I need help, I'll say no right away, even though I probably do need help.
Yeah.
I haven't wanted to rely on people.
I think that someone that really values someone or loves them won't ask if you need help. I think they'll just do it.
They will.
I'm saying.
Yes.
Except
you're right.
Except I do think that there's a caveat to that in that men or anyone for that matter, they're not mind readers, right? So they have to be.
We didn't know that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a good point because once you do communicate, though, right? So this is one of my non-negotiables. Once I communicate a need to you, if you do not respond to that need, if you don't hear that need and not change who you are, but if you don't respond to my need when I am trusting you as my partner or my person to fulfill that need, or at the very least listen to it and consider it and try to figure out how to respond to it, that's a non-negotiable. Because at this point, if I'm communicating, right, because communication is key, if I'm communicating a need and you choose to overlook it, that is disrespectful to me. You're just basically shitting on me being vulnerable with you. You're not creating a safe space, which leads me to my second non-negotiable.
You said sex.
Did I say sex?
You did. Okay.
My second non-negotiable is sex. No.
Where's your mind?
Coffee. We're not drinking wine.
Let's get there. Is the second non-negotiable is safety, right? And I know we talked about this a lot on 45 on the Hour podcast is the environment of safety, what a woman needs to feel safe, right? And I think part of that is maybe creating situations to see how consistent your man is, or the person that you're romantically interested in. How do they respond to certain situations? Are they consistent? Are their actions aligning with their words?
You're not talking about locking the door at night. You're talking about being able to talk to your partner about things that are bothering you and feel like you're not going to be judged, or that's what you're safe.
Technically, I'm talking about both. If you want to break it down in that regard, I think that the man or your partner that you're trusting with your safety is locking the door at night, is making sure that the household, right, is taken care of,
Huge.
right? You can literally turn off your brain as a woman if you have just that one little checklist that is the responsibility of someone else at the end of the day to make sure that you're going to bed in a safe environment, right?
I think a lot of dudes just in general, like, and this is crazy because I never thought this before because I never focused on emotions. But now that I understand how powerful it is and how healing it is just for a man, that it's not being, a sissy or whatever to feel emotional, to understand it. I think it's a power. And so, I don't know. I get to this place where I think, okay, if dudes, I totally lost my train of thought what I was going to tell you. It was based on what you were saying. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, if a man can't hear his woman and he ignores her, like blatantly ignores her because he thinks, oh, we're married or we're tied together, we have kids together, that's abuse. And so I've gotten there in my head where like that is straight abuse. It's emotional abuse.
Right.
Emotional abuse is just as bad as physical abuse. It's just as bad, if not worse. I think it's worse.
It is worse.
Because it lasts longer.
Yeah.
Because you could hit someone in the face and then they heal in 3 days. But if you do emotional abuse, that takes years sometimes. And so I understand it. Because I had those problems. I got my ass whooped when I was a kid. It was in a different form, and I've also been the opposite person in a relationship where I was being abused, in a relationship, physically and mentally. And I didn't understand it until I understood emotions. Once I understood what reality was and what a rational thought was and what a healthy relationship was, then that's when I was like, okay, this person says all these things. So my last person was a therapist.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Therapists and hairdressers. Strippers, therapists and hairdressers.
Lord.
All right. Anyways, I loved her, right? I'll never take that back. But it was difficult to have a conversation because the conversation always had an ego at the end. Like, hey, you hurt me. That hurts what you said to me. I don't like it. Can you not do that? Well, the reason why I did that is because X, Y, and Z, X, Y. Okay, I don't care, but can you just self-reflect on that and just say you understand and you won't let it happen again? The problem is, and that's why I understood it, was like, man, this is why women get upset when guys make promises that they don't keep, or they say things, like, hey, I love you. And then it's like, well, if you love me, why did you sleep with that girl, or something, And so I get it.
Oh, that's also non-negotiable, cheating. But okay.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because it's violating your trust.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, if I'm with you, like I'm giving you everything, you know. And I think guys don't understand that. I think guys they just don't get it. And like when I'm in a committed relationship, I'm committed to you. If I say you're mine and I'm yours, that's it, But until then, I'm just honest with people. I just tell them the truth. Like, hey, we'll see if this works out. I'll talk to you, whatever. But I have to vibe with someone. I have to connect with them. And so at my age, I'm getting older. I want to connect with people more or less. I can see a beautiful woman and be like, oh, yeah, let's just, I don't even know if I want to do dinner with you. Let's just meet somewhere. And that's where I kind of go the other way. Women are very insecure about trying to meet a guy. It's almost like they're afraid that they're going to waste their time because of the way men are today. I feel that a lot of women are like, oh, the dating pool has pee in it. It's like, I know.
True.
But how are you going to, you want somebody, right? So the first thing I always ask people is like, hey, how serious are you about finding somebody? Like, no one's ever asked me that before. Of course I'm serious. Okay, you're serious in a long-term relationship? Yes, cool. When are you free to go have something to eat? Oh, well, let me get back to my schedule. I don't know. Well, I don't know if I'm, and then it's like pussyfooting around for like a week or two. And then it's like 50-50 shot on whether they're going to make plans or not. And it's like they want you to pursue. And they're like, oh, he didn't pursue me enough. It's like, I gave you 3 chances, like you can't communicate. So then there's like an insecurity there that I feel in the dating world. I think there's like an insecurity. And so I just go like, just check out my Instagram. Let me know what you think. I might be too intense for you, And then...
That's a good way because he's out there, right?
Well, I was just going to say, I think, putting all your cards out there is power in that too, right? But I think half of the time, I don't know if it's exactly half, but part of the time it might be an insecurity in dating. But I think the other part of the time, a lot of people are guarded these days as well. To your point, right? They are going to be 10 steps behind you. And then you only get to see, catch up to you when they put in the effort, right?
Well, it's not just men, it's friends.
No, exactly. It can be applied to all
you're starting way back there before you're even it's bad. It's not a good thing.
And I think when you're emotionally transparent, that creates that safe environment so that they can catch up to you and you can start to let your guards down and maybe let go of a little bit of the control eventually, right? When they prove that they're safe for you to be authentic with. And with me and all of my relationships these days, it's like I've regretted so much, actually more so with girls than with guys, ironically. But that's a theme for another day. Actually, we might get there. Yeah, it's just part of like the wounding experience, right? We all have wounds from like our past and our upbringing, and for some reason, like pretty girls for me is like a wound. It's weird. Okay, I don't know. Well, you can dive into that, but I have this experience of letting people in and letting people very close to me that I maybe regret later, right? And so you only, to your point, like you only get to see that full, authentic, like all guards down version of me when I feel safe with you. And that takes a certain amount of time. So I think some people in the dating pool are just guarded, right? Like they've had experiences in the past of people disappointing them or letting them down. And I think part of the reason that dating is so hard today is because they're guarded, right? And you have to be willing to put in a certain amount of effort to get to that safe space with somebody to where they can let their guard down and be vulnerable with you. But emotional transparency, so you had brought that up as well. And I think for me, that has become a non-negotiable. Now, I spoke about at the beginning of our podcast today about different types of attraction, right? And I think that attractions can change over time. And so I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on how your attractions have changed over time, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, because we talk about a lot of guys that, they're with somebody, and women are more or less, I feel like women are more or less interested in staying in the relationship, even if they're not attracted to their guy anymore. They're just, they stick around for the kids and like things like that. When the guys are usually the ones that take a step out and they're like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done, whatever, and then, but were you asking me that question or
both? Yes,
well, you go first.
You want to go? Oh shoot! Okay.
Look, I did
Put me on the spot. That's
there
good.
You go. You're getting there. Little instances,
little steps, baby.
So, yeah, I totally drew a blank here. What was the question?
How have your attractions changed over time?
Yeah. So that's a very valid question. I think guys just in general.
Not guys, you.
Yeah, I say guys is me.
I have a very specific question for you.
Yeah.
If you want me to make that question more specific to you, but let's hear your...
Do the direct.
Do it?
Yeah, it's probably, I'm feeling on the spot here. I'm trying to figure out a way to say it the right way.
Go deep.
I'm going to go in. Okay.
Yeah, let's
see. So
see.
you had mentioned earlier abandonment issues and wounding from your past, which is why it kind of got my wheels turning about how we all have wounds from our past that we now act out in our relationships today. So you had brought up abandonment issues and wounding and everything. Have you ever been very attracted to toxic people? And what do you think draws you to that toxicity?
I've heard it's trauma bonding.
Okay. Yep.
So that was my last relationship. And it was like we couldn't leave because, and it was crazy because everything was so much more powerful. The sexual chemistry was more powerful. The connection was more powerful. But you're an alpha and she's an alpha and there's this control of power. No, you're doing this, you're doing that. I can't. And and then you're fighting. And then, and then you're just, okay, can we have a conversation about this? Yeah. And then there's, words that come out that say you're going to do certain things, and then it doesn't happen. You're like, hey, it didn't happen. I'm pissed off now. I'm leaving. And then it's like, well, but why? I was going to do those things. But at the, and it's like almost like cutting them down. It's like, I don't know. So yeah, attraction does change over time, I think, with somebody. Because I was married multiple times. My first wife, I married her, and everything was great. And then I just lost some sort of connection with her. I don't know what it was. I respected her. I loved her. But then I started losing the respect somewhere in between. I don't know what it was. I think it was maybe character or something. I couldn't figure it out. But I didn't want to be with her anymore, intimately, And so that led to, the end of that. And then the second one was a little similar, but I lost respect for her. It was the same thing, So I started seeing those trends. So the third person I was with, that I proposed to and I was with, I was like, this is going to be great. We're connecting on the same levels. And then it just, that physical chemistry never wore off. And I was wondering, like, why? To this day, it never wore off. But I knew that she wasn't good for me. I knew that she was hazardous for me because she didn't align her words with her actions. She'll tell you she did. She was here, she'd be like, no, but I said this and you did this or whatever. And it's like, well, yeah, but why did I do that? Because that action took place and then it led me to leaving. And then I did that, and it's like, it's one of those things. So it's, I don't know, to each his own. But I think that I eventually lose attraction to someone once I lose respect for them. But in that instance where we were trauma bonded, like we both liked the chaos and I was addicted to the chaos. And I don't know why. It was like this constant chase, And so, some guys will say, oh, don't chase, replace. I say, when you chase, you repel, And so when you're chasing somebody, they're getting more distance, from you, And I see that. So, but at the same time, it's complicated for men because women want men to pursue them. But then when they pursue, they're playing this game, And it's like, well, how many times should a guy pursue you before you just say, hey, I just want you to know I'm not interested? I think that would be more better for women to just say in the beginning, like, hey, I just want you to know I'm not interested at all. Okay, no problem.
Well, I think honesty and transparency is always, like you said, just don't lie, like tell the truth from the beginning. And if you're not interested, then just say it and that'll hurt less than like this ongoing thing of like games, right? It's just a waste of everyone's time at the end of the day.
I think that if not to cut you up, but I wanted to end. If I don't feel like someone has respect for me or they've lost it in some way, I start noticing, I start pulling back, especially from a woman. Like, wait a minute, you can't keep up with your times. You're flaking on this. Like, flakes are the worst. I can't deal with a flake. Hey, like if you set a time, you better freaking make that time. And if not, and it's serious, then okay. But most of the time it's bullshit when people lie to you and flake on you. It's just that something else is more important.
He doesn't like a good cancellation.
We do. I was just thinking that.
We like a good cancellation.
We love when plans get canceled.
I have
I manifested sometimes.
Yeah, same.
Like, God, what did I say yesterday?
It's because you guys are extremely busy.
Yeah,
guessing, right?
I think so. If we ever have a break in the schedule, it's really fun.
I think it's just because if you value your time so much and you're so in depth with like your time, like every minute of it, it's like, dang, I wish you would have told me because I could have spent time with my kids.
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
I could have done something with my kids this weekend, but you just flaked on the whole weekend.
And that's your feeling what you gave up or sacrificed for that time that you gave to this person. That's huge.
Yes, it is huge.
Yeah, and it says a lot about them. And I believe this with all my core. Unless someone has a gun holding to your head, held to your head, you'll make anything possible.
Yes. That's important to you.
If you really want to.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you'll find an excuse.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell a lot of people when I'm talking to them through Instagram or whatever. I'm trying to help people out or whatever. I say, well, you're going to do this. This is the blueprint. But we know it's not a blueprint problem, right? Because I told you this 3 weeks ago. It's a you problem. You're the problem, not the blueprint. You have an action problem. And so people have trouble like getting motivation these days, which constitutes their habits and who they are. And that's the reason why a lot of dudes are so feminine these days. They really are. We talked about that last time, and they just can't. I feel it. Like dudes are way more emotional these days. They are,
And that's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay, actually.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
As long as everything else is nipped up, as long as like you're providing, you're taking care of yourself, you're working on yourself, I think it's okay.
Well, I think there's a huge difference between being emotionally in tune and being emotional for the sake of being emotional. Like there's
like crying out of nowhere on a date.
There's a pick me energy about it, right? And I think that just goes back to ego and like wanting to be chosen. And it's a huge turnoff for anyone really to be so overly emotional that it just is like, wait, but I'm the victim here. It's more of like a victim mentality. Whereas there's a very, a huge difference into a man being emotionally transparent and in touch with his emotions. And so that there's a strength in that, right?
Oh, that's good.
And so there's a strength in that versus the victimhood. And so I think that's like super important to clarify. So it's the same word, emotionality, but it's two very different experiences of it, right? And so I think that's important to clarify. And you had brought up a couple things about your attractions changing over time. And I think that, and maybe not everyone has a toxic story, but I know that, I do as well. And most people that I know have a period or in their lives that you're attracted to toxicity.
I think it's two things. I think it's love and hate. I think you love them and you hate them. You're like, I hate you because I love you now and I'm connected to you. And I like all these traits about you, but there's a handful of traits that are so easy, but you just can't give me that. It's like you can't give me what I need. I hate you for that. So it's like, I think it's just a weird thing. And you can't have them. So you're just like, okay, well, I'll just have whatever I can get. And you just have. Yeah.
But I think
scraps.
there's, the scraps of that person. But I think it's such a huge tie-in to you are literally acting out your wounds in a relationship. Because that person is a reflection of you, you're literally acting out the toxicity of your past or your upbringing or your wounds. And you're seeking that out in relationships. So you're almost self-sabotaging.
Trying to find people like that.
Yeah, you're almost self-sabotaging yourself because you're seeking out those people that are going to show you what you're familiar with. And so you're seeking out experiences to reinforce abandonment, to reinforce this chaos, right?
I see the same thing. I got friends that are girls and they talk about their relationships and they're like, yeah, I met this other guy. I'm like, oh, you met at Wasco? Like they like prison guys. And I'm like, why do you like prison guys? Because I don't know, I like the bad boy. And no, you don't. You like broken men. And you want to fix them. You want to try to fix them all.
That part.
Right. Yeah.
That part. Yes. And I think that goes back into the control part. And so I know I had mentioned earlier that I know why I need control, right? And it is because I like to fix people. I like things to be a certain way in my world because it makes me feel safe. It makes me feel
comfortable.
Comfortable. Yeah. And so when I have a project or something to fix, right? And that's not okay. That's not healthy. But I think it's so interesting that we are addicted to this like chaos and we relate passion to this up and down kind of roller coaster.
We should talk about that a little bit because like being comfortable isn't comfortable. It's being uncomfortable actually is being comfortable, right? There's a song about that by Future. You should listen to it. Anyways, but yeah, so I talk about that a lot. It's called inflicting adversity. Yeah. So you have to inflict adversity daily. It's important. So I do like weird things like taking a cold shower at night when I'm sick. Like literally, like I had a chest cold on Sunday. I was like, I'm just going to take a cold shower. I'll just jump in my pool. Like retarded stuff. That makes no sense. You're like, why are you doing that? But it's not pain. It's just makes you uncomfortable. Like walking outside in my underwear just because it's 46 outside and just staying there until like I feel like going to bed. Like just inflicting adversity any way you can, as many times as you can per day. And that's
for
what
me, that'd just be going to the gym.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Same.
The hardest part about going to the gym is actually getting there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Believe it or not.
Exactly.
So, and it's weird because I was never taught anything that I know now. No one ever taught me anything. Not how to run a business, not how to be a man, not how to go to the gym. I learned everything on my own.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, just like full, like, straight, like a bull running at it, which I've kind of gotten used to that. And so I've kind of gotten used to life being a little bit unorganized, but being comfortable with it being unorganized. And it's like I have a weird thing, and we always said this in the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps is all about controlled chaos. And so like that was a thing that we'd be like, okay, we'd go to war, and in war you don't know what's going to happen. But like, okay, well, if these guys die, we're going to come up and we're going to go do this, and then we're going to throw bombs on these people. But don't worry, if those guys die, we got the helos coming in from the back. And you're just like, yeah, all right, cool, let's do it. And there's no fear. So I kind of like challenge life like that. Like I wake up knowing that it's going to be okay. Well, it says it in the Bible a million times, do not fear anything. like 365 times to be exact. It says that. And so in my eyes, I don't have fear because I don't think about the future. I try to stay in the present. You're really supposed to stay just a touch into the future. That's the goal in life. Staying too far back, dwelling on your past, like, oh man, I should have done this when I was 20, or I should have done. It's like, no, do it now, because eventually 10 years has passed like that. So just start now. But a lot of people have trouble getting the momentum. And then a lot of people think about, well, if I do it, what about this and what about that? And what if? And you can what if all you want. But at the end of the day, you're just living in anxiety. And
Yeah,
that's
I'm
why
not a
people
what
have
if
panic
person
attacks.
for you.
That's
Are
funny.
you?
I am working on it, but I just took a test yesterday about
Personality?
Whether, it was a strength finder.
Are you trying to feel my? Are you trying
I'm
to hold my
your
hand? Oh,
it was a strength finder test and everything, and so but yeah, I to your point, I used to get panic. I do get panic attacks as well, and that is just a physical manifestation of living in anxiety and worrying too much about the future. So I'm not really a what if type of person. I don't.
Why do you worry about the future all the time?
This is going to get really dark, but to put it like very succinctly and quick, is that I think about death a lot.
Really?
Yeah, I like a lot. I'm like a very high functioning depressed person, so I live with I'm just depressed all the time, and so I think about death a lot, and I don't know if that's because of the people that I have lost in life and like the experience of death that I've had and everything, but I just think about it, and it's not in like a sad way. It's just like I'm very aware of my mortality, and I'm very aware of everybody around me. I don't know how to say it. Mortality as well. So like the other night, I just started crying out of like nowhere because I was like, this is so sad. Like that everyone I talk to today is going to die. And like, I think about that stuff like
We've
so
talked about
often.
this. Yeah.
And so I don't think about like what if scenarios and all of these things. I do play out like scenarios in my head of like what could happen with a problem that I'm facing and like go through that and stuff in my mind. But I think about the future in that like I'm worried about the time that I have here and like
I think that's different
not
than what
living
ifs.
it the way I want to.
I think that's okay. I think
yeah,
most,
it is different than what
It's
ifs.
actually
ifs
really
are
good to
more-
have. Oh, go ahead.
what ifs are more like my mom saying, "Don't go there because that plane just." You're like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
well,
My parents say that all the time, and I literally laugh. I'm like,
what
well,
if this
what if
happens?
I,
I'm
exactly.
like, but
and so to my depressive response, I always tell my parents, they're like, don't go to Mexico, the cartels are there. And I'm like, what if I walk out your front door and just get taken out?
Or
You
if I
know?
go to San Diego, or like,
yeah, exactly.
Someone told me a long time ago to write my own eulogy. And I did it. And it really changed my perspective on my future. But not that I was afraid of death, because I'm not afraid of death.
I'm afraid of death. We had a whole podcast on being afraid of death.
Yeah, remember?
I don't want to die. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
I'm not
actually
afraid of
live
it.
life more better now than I had the last like 5 years, because not because of death. I don't even think about death, honestly. Like I'm aware that like mortality is like a real thing and it's going to happen. I'm more aware of like the time I have left, like you said. And what I do in that and what I've learned to heal from is living life moment by moment, moment by moment, like sitting here talking to you guys, just focusing on that.
Yeah.
If you start getting used to the moments and then you try to accumulate moments throughout your day, you feel more fulfilled.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. And so like that's what I try to get people on is like a list of a calendar events that they're going to do. Like, what are you doing tomorrow? I do this with alcoholics and drug addicts that reach out to me. Man, I'm struggling with PTSD. I've been drinking, and I'm like, okay, cool. We'll stop doing that. 100% tomorrow. Here's your list. This is what you need to do. Same your non-negotiables. Do it by tomorrow. I'm never talking to you again because you just want attention. And I do that.
Maybe
and
I need him.
Yeah. And I do that because if you're going to come to me for help and I'm going to give you the solution and then you create another problem, you just want attention. And so a lot of people that fear death are afraid of like what like their abilities almost. Like they have like such high hopes for their abilities, and then they have problems with, typically they have problems with action, but you don't have that problem.
I have that problem. My problem is I know I'm not living my best life, and so I need as much time as I can to live my best life, but I'm not doing anything to live my best life. I'm saying, well, I need more time. And so and I'm conscious of it, which is even worse.
Right, yeah. And I think you guys are doing great. I mean, you guys got this beautiful podcast here. You guys are
excited.
well-spoken, successful ladies, you know. I think sometimes we just need to give ourselves a little bit more credit than we deserve.
Yes, we do. And
We
honor
sure
and
do.
grace.
We're not deserving it. Yeah, we're not talking about it. And I think that was my biggest thing. I used to just always hit myself on the head. I'd be like, man, you haven't done anything yet. You haven't done anything. You're just this, you're a loser, and all these other things. But I was like, nah, that's the other dude talking. Because like a normal human being doesn't think that way. Our minds are designed to go negative
True.
every day.
It's very
We wake
easy
up
to
and-
go negative.
That's why I go to the
Yeah.
gym in the morning. That's why you see me on Instagram going to the gym, banging out burpees, because I try to get my vibration high. That's important. A lot of people don't talk about that. You got to talk about your vibrations and your frequencies because they're two different things.
My vibration goes up when I eat a cookie.
Really? Yeah.
No.
No.
You gotta do what makes you happy.
Probably for a minute.
Eating cookies does not make me I mean, they're good, but no, it doesn't make me happy. I feel like shit after I eat them.
Yeah. It's a mindset thing too, though.
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, the mortality thing's important to understand. I look at everything as like a benefit. And like, okay, so if I know I'm going to die, what does that mean? Okay, what do I want my life to look like? And I wrote it down one day. I physically just sat there and I wrote my shit down. I was like, okay, I don't want to be fat. I don't want to look like, I want to take my shirt off at the beach. And I want people to be like, dudes and ladies, to be like, dang, that dude knows what's up, you know? I want to be confident. I want to have the tattoos I want, regardless of what anyone else thinks, you know? I want to be the best dad to my kids. I wrote all these things down.
I love that
I
too
want to have
about
money.
you.
What?
That you prioritize your kids. I love it.
Oh, thanks.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Not a lot of men do that.
No. Well,
Yeah.
not a lot of men have had the experience that, Colt's upbringing gave him. Not a lot of men have been involved with the Marine Corps. And then I think it's just as a side note to that, I think it's really interesting how you said that your street life and your Marine Corps life kind of showed you that family means violence. And then for taking that, getting out of the Marine Corps, getting out of the street life, and then applying the opposite to your daughters, right, as a single dad, I think is amazing.
Yes.
And I think, kind of, you said you're not big on unlearning, but I think you did unlearn a lot of the...
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it's just unlearning. I just stopped doing certain things.
Yeah.
You know?
But that's unlearning.
Yeah, you're right. It's the same thing.
But you're so loving to your daughters, to Nicole's point, and that you prioritize them. And I think you've changed the definition that you grew up with as far as what family means to you. It's not violent, right? It's like very loving and very attentive. And so to prioritize that, you're right. I don't think a lot of men do that.
Yeah, especially being a single dad of 3 girls.
Yeah.
With 3 different mothers.
Yeah.
Gets complicated.
Yeah.
You know, my first daughter's mom's not around. And then my other 2 wives, I had a daughter with each of them. So,
How old are your girls?
my oldest is 18. She's actually going in the Marine Corps. It's cotton on top, right?
Very cool.
And then my next one's 14. She's like the diva. She's the one she was talking about her nails.
Yeah.
She's my little hunty. And then the little one's Anna Lee.
And
She just turned 10.
oh, cute. Those are great
yesterday.
ages.
17th, yeah.
Great ages.
Yeah, phenomenal. So different, so smart, and they're just so different. Like my oldest one's super sporty. I think my sporty runner, she runs like I did when I was young, 14 miles a day sometimes.
Wow.
Crazy, yeah. She runs in the hills and all this stuff. I'm like, what are you doing? Bring some mace. You know?
Kids are great. And so are puppies, Christy.
Are they?
Yes.
That's
When are we
wild.
getting a kid or a puppy?
That is wild. I saw a picture of a puppy the other day and I was like, oh, so cute. And I thought about it for like a second.
And you're like,
then
no.
I was like, I'll take another drink back.
One
Hunter.
more
We're good.
martini, please.
Yeah.
Speaking of
We're good.
martini, we're getting close to our
5 o'clock
closeout.
somewhere. I
5
know.
o'clock
We are
somewhere.
actually right on time at our closeout here. I
Yes.
feel like we only scratched the surface.
I know.
so
We
we'll
need to
have
do this again, I think.
We
Part
will have
B,
to.
maybe.
We will have to do this again. But Cole, it was so great to have you here, to have the
Yes, it was.
male perspective, though you can't speak for all men. I think you're a great example of, and we love to have you here. So.
Thank
And
you
once
guys for
again,
having me.
I got counseling from 2 different people for no charge.
That's the
love
goal,
it.
even though you guys are against counseling, which we'll have
I am
to talk
against
about
counseling.
later.
Totally.
Sorry, but I love you.
Let's be open.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you again,
You're
Colt,
welcome.
for being here. And
Yes,
we'll
thank you.
See you
Of course,
soon.
thanks, guys.
See you soon.
Thanks for being here.
Bye, guys.
Live your best life in truth.